Hi, hi.
Hi, hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Am I audible as well as visible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's quite a number that they've joined. I think we can begin if you're okay with that, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I see a lot of you have joined. So welcome everyone. So we are here on the occasion of International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So by the resolution of the General Assembly on 22nd December 2015, it established 11th February as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So it was to recognize the critical role of women and girls that they play in science and technology. So basically, we'll be talking about STEM. So as if you guys don't know about it, it's a simple abbreviation. It's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we see there are a lot of issues in that the women in science, women in STEM field that they face. So around 30%, according to the United Nations data, around which is recorded from 2015 to 17, if I'm not wrong, around 30% of STEM graduates are women, and it's speculated that right now it's even less than that. So we see there are a lot of disparities in the field of science, in the field of STEM. So we are here with our guest to break the stereotypes and to remind everyone that women and girls play a critical role in field of STEM and their participation must be strengthened. So we have with us Miss Sangeena Salam, a very dynamic and versatile personality, a scientist who have contributed in successful collaborative multidisciplinary projects of performing drug assays, molecular experiments, and fabrication of prototype chip devices. She's also a postdoctoral associate at Rutgers University, New Jersey, United States, and a PhD research she has a PhD research in development of drug screening platform for the neurodegenerative Parkinson's disease model, which she completed from McMaster University, Hamilton, Canada. So we'll begin without further ado. So, ma'am, like, I mean, this is the first basic question that I would like to ask you. Like, I mean, how did you become interested in this field? Were you always interested in science and technology and maths, or like was there a defining moment in your life which then you decided that yes, I'm gonna continue in this line, I'm gonna follow this? I mean, just
First of all, I would like to thank the Girl of Manipur chapter for organizing this video live session and for giving me a platform just to share my story as a part of the event. And yeah, so going to the question, okay. So for me, the way how I got interested in science is more from the upbringing. Generally, most of our generation in Manipur, and when we grow up, most our parents want us to be a medical doctor, or a nurse, and something like so. Giving that, since there are more options with taking the life science option or like in science, so we kind of chose the field, and but that was just the beginning. And once I got into like my general studies in science, I got interested more and more because, as you know more, you want to know more, and there is of it, like you want to explore the science. You do all these different experiments, and then you study in as a part of our syllabus. Also, we study all these different kind of diseases. Some are linked to genetics, some are linked to environmental factors. So at that point of time when I was studying BSc and masters, all I was thinking was, oh, I want to explore more, and then as people guide us, like, if you do a PhD thesis, you might have an opportunity to know part of, even if you don't know as a medical doctor, you will still I can still be studying some sort of diseases and stuff like so. With that, with the guidance from my family, especially from my brother, who also had a degree in life science and also did a PhD in life science. Yeah, I got more interested, and then I chose the field to continue my higher study in life science.
Well, ma'am, that's quite interesting because, as I know, as of data, like there's according to this academic journal, which is called Contemporary Educational Psychology, it is said in the journal that, there's a misconception among people, there misconception among the women or everyone, stereotype that men possess more intelligence in the field of technology and science. And there's this misconception that exists. So, and this misconception, demeans the self-esteem, or discourages a lot of women to take up in their career or take up the studies in the field of STEM. So, what would you like to comment on this? Like, have you seen such kind of stereotypes or faced such kind of stereotypes and during your study or in your workspace? Like, have like there's such kind of challenges?
Yeah, I get that general like consideration what people say. I mean, even for me, like and for my my peers, the main thing was like you have to score good in science and maths, then you will be able to choose for STEM streams for further study, right? Either medical engineering or just in general studies in science, right? So that was like, way back when we were in our, 10th standard, 9th, 10th grade, right? But once you cross that, I mean, I don't think there is, I mean, when I was undergoing the study, we had a lot more girls during my master's too. We had in our classroom, girls were the majority as compared to the boys. Um, but I think that, that changed once we finished the graduate study, right? Once we graduated from our master's, um, like only few girls opted for PhD. So then more boys opted for PhD, and fewer girls opted for PhD. So girls discontinued their study after completing the masters. Same as like during my PhD also, like there were more girls, but then when we get into masters, my friends who are with me during the BSc, some of them didn't continue their study. So I think it really depends. Yeah. And during my PhD also, like we had so the PhD program in Canada or in US, it comes in a smaller program, so there are only fewer candidates. So if I have to say, in our lab, we had quite enough girls, but who were actually conducting PhD was just two of us. But then for boys, there were, I mean, I would not say it's a big difference, but still, like, there were
Yeah.
higher in number in by few, right? Like when we were two, they were at a given time, they were three or four, but then we graduate. It's a gradual process. But then in my collaborative project, we had a team, right? So collaboration with the engineering department. So I was the only girl in the whole team. So in our team, I have me and then my major collaborator who does most of the designing. So he was also a PhD student. And then we had all other mentors who are part of the committee. So they were also all guys. So in a team of six, I was the only girl. And then when I joined for my postdoc, we had a big lab. So we are about like 30 people in the lab. And out of those 30, we are about 7 postdoc at a given time. And that number changes, but at a given time, we
Yeah.
were about postdocs. But I was the only female postdoc in the entire lab. So I have to say, as we go higher into our education, even though we see a lot of girl students during the college, the number just drops
Yes, ma'am.
significantly. So those are something that I have experienced personally, and it could be because of several reasons.
Yes, ma'am. I think that is a very big problem. And what do you think the reason is? Because even I see that there are a lot of women graduates in STEM, in science and technology, but they discontinue the studies, or they don't continue in the line of they don't continue their career in the line of STEM, even if there are a lot of STEM graduates. So what might be the reason, according to you, ma'am?
One of the main reason, I have to say, having going through a PhD or going through a postdoc, it's not an easy. Did it break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Now you're audible.
now, okay. So that thing is there, the difficulty of the commitment, right? So the other thing is mainly because of as a woman, as a girl, for me, I didn't have any, pressure from the family background, family side, or anything like that. But a lot of girls get the pressure and, influence from the family that, they should get married first and then
Yeah.
instead of pursuing have a family, that kind of pressure. That is one very main objective. Second one is again, I didn't have that problem. I was lucky not to have those issues. But for some girls, like, as we talk, they have to really convince their parents that, they want to continue their study and they want to go and stay abroad or, somewhere else for their education. There is a lot of questions, that comes from our family and society about the safety of the
Yes.
girl, um, and then a lot of questions that goes into it. So those are, yeah, so it really depends from person to person and case to case, but those are some of the issues that we still face by most of the girls.
Yeah, it becomes difficult to balance the personal and the professional life.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, you were lucky for that, but there are a lot of women who still faces this imbalance in their career and in their personal life or the family. Do you think there is a solution to it, and what kind of solution can there be to balance such, hectic
Right.
imbalances?
Yeah. I mean, again, it depends on the family background. Yeah, I mean, it's we have to be really open about it. As we grow, as we become parents, and as we meet parents for some other younger person who wants to pursue studies in STEM. Um, in our day-to-day life, I try to talk about, like, what are the opportunities and what they can do as they pursue the study, and just to live an open mind and not to worry too much about the safety, and the having a family or have to get married. um, so I think we just have to yeah, request our parents to be more open about it. And then in our day-to-day life, if we come across anyone who has this kind of mental barrier, we have to talk to them. Not, we don't have, you don't fight with them, but just try to talk to them to make them understand what are the possibilities beyond that barrier, and what outcome that they get of their girls or for their children, if they pursue the study. And so I think that really it depends on like mind, to having some open mind about the advantages of having all these studies done, and then knowing the world. Yeah.
So as you talk about open mind, I mean, it becomes easy to convince your family about having this balance in your life if we are studying abroad, because we see a kind of liberal environment abroad. But as we see, there are a lot of students in India where security is, of course, a very big concern for the women,
Right.
for the girls. So I'm pretty sure you might have come across your friends who are from India telling you stories about, problems they face in India regarding security and trying hard to convince their parents. Because and this kind of stress, hectic environment, it also ends up creating an imbalance in your professional and your personal life. So, would you like to address something on those lines, if you can?
Um, sure. Like, that reminds me of my one of my colleague who shared her story of, during who was doing a PhD in India, and her supervisor was not very nice. Like, he was trying to take advantage of her, um, like in terms of physical assault. So that is like very traumatizing experience. But she was brave enough to stand up against it. And I mean, there are consequences for that, possible consequences somehow. So the professor was, he was a very senior professor, and he was, all trying to get promotions and stuff like that. So when my colleague, when she was a PhD student, she went to complain to the higher authority, and basically they listened to it, but not really ready to take any legal action. So um, she ended up contacting this female group outside of the campus, and then the organization came to interrupt or like investigate the situation. Again, the investigation didn't go very far, um, but still, since this third organization got involved into the situation, the professor agreed to write a written apology to the student. So that's the kind of the story. And after that, like, everyone is just asking
Yeah.
her, like, oh, you are sabotaging career, you might not get anything to do after you finish your PhD, you are done, kind of thing. But she continued to ask for help, and connect people, not just in her institute, but as much possible as she can, through conferences, through meetings. And finally, she came for a postdoc in the lab where I came, right about the time I was leaving.
Yeah, so ma'am, as you were talking about a story, it's not just physical assault. There are a lot of others as well, problems that women face in their workspace as well as while they're studying in their educational life. So, for example, there are a lot of, misconceptions and stereotypes against women. There are unequal wages, unequal salaries that have been paid to women. And so that such discrimination is, it exists almost in every sphere of their lives. So what I mean, it gets a bit personal if you're okay to answer this, but have you faced any such kind of challenges or barriers as a woman in your life? It can be anything, not just assault, but unequal wages or discrimination, stereotypes that you often face in your workspace or in while you're studying.
Again, luckily, I have not any issues, but I have heard about it. Those are, I think, those are very real when it comes to like corporate, private companies. But for us, as a postdoc or as a PhD, there is a guideline for salary, for wages that that we are supposed to get from the research institute that are governed by the government as well as from the university. So it has to meet that requirement. And luckily, all throughout the time, I have had that, there was never a problem with that. So I get what I'm supposed to get based on the current guideline or whatever the guideline that was existed for my kind of work. But I have heard a lot of story again,
Mm.
in mostly from like private sector. But I think that's, I mean, I haven't really looked at any studies on that, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, but I think it's there, and we are lucky enough not to have that issue, I think, because all the female professionals before who were there before us fought for it in those olden times.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think because of their hard work and for their commitment, we didn't have that problem.
So do you think the situation has improved?
I think so. I think so. If the situation is still, the problems are still there, but I don't think in terms of, I don't think it's that exists in terms of salary.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and people are a lot more acceptable now than before. I mean, there is still a lot of room to improve, but it's
Yes.
yeah, it's better than I think the olden days.
Of course, it has improved, but still we see a lot of disparities, a lot of inequalities in the field of science, especially. For
Right.
instance, I mean, I will ask a very basic question before I'll put some statistics and some facts. For instance, there is this Fields Medal. It's awarded to excellent mathematicians, and there have been 56 awards. And the first woman to receive this was in 2014. She was Mariam Mirzakhani. And not only that, but if you see the Nobel Prize or the series of Nobel Prize that people have received from 1901 to 2017, or if you see specifically in the background of science, if you see the ratio for physics, it's 2 is to 207. For chemistry, it's 4 is to 178. And for medicine and for physiology, it's 12 is to 214. I mean, the ratio speaks a lot. I mean, the facts. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think there's a lack of recognition
Yes,
that has been, or
I agree with the misproportion at this level. So there is still a lot of problem, and like lack of recognition, as you said, at this level, like in terms of award. And Nobel Prize, it's such a prestigious award.
yeah,
People who are deserving of it, has not been getting it mostly because um, that's what the people say in the news and so it's mostly from the committee who are made for this kind of um, prize, like organizations to pick up the candidates or for the winner, are mostly male dominant.
okay,
So they are, I don't think they probably are ignoring them, just saying oh, they are female and we should not recognize, but like male tend to have more friends as a male at the higher level, or if there is less number of female supervisor, female professors or female person who are in the leadership position, that will eventually lead to less representation in all this organization who represent in the bigger platform, right? So with that, there is just misproportion at the bigger level, at the higher level. So
A kind of
we
gender politics.
exactly. So the fight that we really need right now is to have the leadership positions, having more female leadership position. I think we are in India. We are like far behind in that process. I have no stats in my hand or anything like that, but
It's fine,
just
man. It's fine.
from looking at it and just from seeing at my university where I did my master's, we have no female professor. So we have six professor. They are all male professor. So going there and asking for something, um, it feels kind of strange. So we have to work at that level, having to have to be in the leadership position, and eventually fight out for the misproportion.
Yeah, ma'am, and also on the similar lines, there has been this arguments throughout years that while advocating the rights of female or recognition of women in science and technology, the actual talent or the actual skills has been lost. As in, it's not been recognized and it's been covered by the politics of gender politics, because gender politics is happening from both sides. One is advocating that we must deserve this, and one is advocating that no. So in those battles, do you think, the actual skill sets, the actual talented people are being undermined or being ignored? I mean, this
So,
includes both sides.
so are you trying to? I'm trying to get at the clear question. So during the process of advocating for female scientists, you're saying that people are losing the actual skill for being a scientist?
No. I just want to comment. I'll elaborate it briefly. So there is this argument that I've come across while debating about these issues. This is an argument posed by the male dominant. They say that while advocating the woman's right in or recognition in the field of science and technology, some of the men's who are really qualified are being undermined or are being ignored. So what is your opinion on those regard, on this argument that has been discussed, I mean, around these years?
I don't think that's correct to say, first of all, because when we go for interview, right? We go the same interview as the male candidate, right? So we will be, we will be screened by the same set of people. They won't have a different set of people or different set of exams or different kind of screening system for being a female. So I don't think that's quite right to say.
Yeah. So
Just,
it's more like a superiority complex.
yeah,
So do you think?
I just disagree.
I mean, so I asked that how can you break such stereotypes, such superiority complex of the gender or the gender inequality, gender politics, and bring about gender equality in the society? How can you, like, in your opinion, can we bring gender equality?
So yeah, it's not it's not a one-step process, or it's not like, an easy thing, or we do this and that's gonna solve the problem. It's not like that. It's gonna take effort, time, and especially from the girls' side, like me and like other girls who are already done a certain amount of education. Say like in my case also, like now I came back to India after I finished my postdoc, right? I can still continue my study, but because of the family I came here, and due to the pandemic, if I give up now, then it's not doing fair treatment for in all this gender problem, right? So like there are girls who had gone through PhD, and if they give up right after that, like saying, oh, I have my family issues, I have my this thing and that thing, whatever the problem it is. If we give up, even if the society works for it, it's not going to work, right? So I think the thing is, we have to keep working for it, and then don't give up. And and of course, we need a lot of support from the family, from the society, and from the community, right? So when I go for my interview, once this pandemic, which is almost getting over, hopefully, if I when I start going for interview, if people start questioning, oh, why you didn't apply for this other job right after, then that's a problem, right? Like I barely have, it's just hard to manage for myself at this point of time without any support to help me in the family, like with the baby. And it's just not possible for me to leave the house even, right? So the I think there has to be some sort of understanding from the community for depending on the situation. um, at the same time, like I should not give up at this point of time. So I think it has to be an equal effort, from us and from the people who are supporting us.
So it's kind of a positive approach that one should
Right.
have to
Right.
overcome such barriers. Yes, right. So, ma'am, we are almost at the end. So I'll open the round to the audience. If there's any questions, you guys can ask. You guys can comment here. I will try to address. If there are a lot of them, then I'll try to address some of you. So it's open for questioning. Received it, Priyan. Some of questions I received it, Priyan. So, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the question is a very interesting one. It says, what message or advice would you give to your younger self?
uh, be more confident, be more prepared. Yeah, I think those are, and yeah, maybe less, stress a little less than what I should.
Is there any story behind it for being a bit less confident or being confident as you speak?
I mean, I guess it all of this personality comes, the way how we grow up and the kind of exposure that we had. So we had very minimal exposure, and we are tend to, like in with the way how we were brought up was, I guess it's the cultural thing. You don't talk much to the people that you're supposed to talk to, and then, like approach to people if you have any questions or concerns, and then ask out for help. That's just not very common in our cultural settings. Like if I want to know something, if we have to do something, it's always like telling my mom or my parents, and then they will reach out to the people that they know or the people that I know, and they will talk to their parents, and then they'll. It's kind of a very long process, and so when I was like even asking a simple questions in the classroom, we, and in our family settings, we don't ask that many questions. So all those kind of come along wherever I go. And when, yeah, when I went for my PhD in Canada, it became a very like I have to break those internal politics I have. I just have to like approach more, not hesitate, to talk to other professor. Like if you have any questions, there, we have always this mindset, like if I ask something to this professor, he might just say some angry face, or we just have this presumption. It's like that, and so it become people are a lot more approachable, and then slowly it goes away, but it takes a long time to break those uh, barrier that we built along the time. So yeah, and then stressing, I think everyone's stressed about what is going to happen
Yeah.
after this, after that, and even if you have a presentation, wow, oh my God, I have this presentation, you get stressed out. But in our field, especially, we do since we are, we work in we spend a lot of time with our work, and I don't think we don't have to stress about things, small things that we worry a lot of the time. So I guess those are like very general things that I can share from my own experience.
Okay. I mean, that's a wonderful story, ma'am. And I mean, I hope that encourages a lot of us here. Well, there is another question. It says, what is the biggest issue or problem that you faced in your entire lifetime till date, and how did you overcome it?
So for me, I think the problem is currently my current phase is a problem. So before having the baby, um, things were, I would do, sorry, before having the baby, I would be doing things as per my wish, right? Like, as what I want. But now it's just, you cannot just do the same way in like freely. And and on top of that, this pandemic has added a lot more, I guess, a lot more difficulties to it in the whole situation. Without it, like it would have been a little bit more easier. Um, but yeah, that's one big thing I think. So for me currently, is like I'm still going through the process of undergoing or like overcoming the problem. Um, but yeah, before that, I don't think there had been really any big problem that I have to worry. It was more about I have to work and get it done and finish it, and that's it. But for now, it's like a real life problem.
Ma'am, as you're talking about pandemic and the COVID-19, do you think the pandemic has affected, women in STEM field who are especially in the early stage of their career? Has it affected in, even
Right.
increasing the gap of, gender ratios in the STEM field?
Right. So yeah, it is a big problem for almost all. I guess for mostly for women of my age and like a little bit older and a little bit younger. Who just started out their actual career. They had to, if it is not in research, even those who work in companies or in private companies or private settings, they have to like just to fill up the gaps in the family, and when both the spouses are working, right? So I think it has had a big deal on it that a lot of the women had either had to leave the job. For me, when I came, I still like it. People understand it, right? I have to stay, like because of my family, and I had no one to take care for the baby, so I'm leaving. Like I'm leaving. So yeah, so I think that's it's I'm not sure, or like I haven't, since I'm not in, still not yet as a part of a team in India. I'm not sure how far along the discussions are on the table right now. But in my previous in my postdoc lab, or in US or in Canada, it's a really a topic for discussion that almost all the university or the organizations are talking about, like how to bring back all these women who left the job during this pandemic, um, because it might give a problem in this gender parity issue that we have, and people have worked for it for all this time, and suddenly we are going back to as if we have not done anything on this issue. So it's a big problem almost everywhere in at this current time.
Yeah.
And I think I'm hopeful that people will be mindful about it, as we get back to normal life. I mean, it's not a problem that we wanted to have. It just came that, unavoidable situation. So,
Yeah.
mm,
That's true, ma'am. So, okay, I'll go to the last question now. The last question of the session. So, I mean, it's a very simple question. Like, what do you want to convey to the youth, specifically to the girls or the women of, today's generation? What do you want to tell them?
again, I will, it's the same reputation. Um, you have to work hard for sure, like, without without working hard, nothing is easy to achieve in this generation, right? It's not the generation that our parents used to live. It's a lot more competitive, a lot more advanced, and we have to evolve with the new changes that we come across every day. So really, you have to work hard, and then you have to be very articulate about what you want. It's not as easy. I mean, I don't know if maybe it depends on other people, situation to situation, but you have to yeah, really articulate on things that you want. Like, it's not like, oh, I go and finish this and what next. You have to really plan about it, and you have to know the kind of, at least have a speculation or a plan about how you go about it, how to approach for the kind of path or for the kind of goal that you have for your career, right? So just don't, leave it like that and wait for something to fall on you, right? So you have to really be articulate about the goal that you want. You have to think out how do you achieve it. How do you get it, how to get it there. And in order to do that, you might have to talk to very many different people and ask what are the possible ways, and try to find out the answers to the problems that you will have. So something, being articulate and very well planned of what you want as your career. And then, don't give up. That's the one thing. If you give up, then, that's it. That's the end of it. Even if the world come to you, it's not going to solve the problem. So don't give up, and focus. It's very easy to get distracted. So have a focus. Even if you got distracted, come back to the focus that you have.
I think that's the most practical and pragmatic advice that one can give to the youngsters. Thank you for that, ma'am. So,
I just got a question from
oh,
V Saga.
yeah. I think her name is Vidya. I think yeah, you can address the question, ma'am, of course.
Oh yeah. So the question is, can you please share your experiences of pursuing higher education in STEM abroad? I mean, I mean, it's what should I say? There are different ways to go for it, and a lot of the answers comes to, like, want to go for it. And so, like, from my experience, like, I did my PhD in Canada and postdoc in the US, all came through my approaches, from the people whom I talked to. Um, some people might say, I mean, I myself have given the advice like, look up for the research area in different universities, and then you apply for it. TOEFL is usually required, GRE is usually required. Um, these are general thing, people follow. In my case, I did not do any of those. I didn't write GRE or TOEFL. So I happened to talk to, so my way of going was, I guess it's a different kind. So I attended a conference, when I was doing my master's in the University of Mysore. So in that conference, we had the guest speaker coming from Master University. And I went there to the conference just to listen to the talk. I didn't present anything, but I went there and listened all the talks as much as I can. And the guest speaker announces during the talk that he is interested in recruiting a couple of students. So he had an interview, just not like oh, what you study, or like how much of science nothing like that, but just to, I think he was trying to sense of your personality, like how will you be when you go to Canada, will you be able to cope up with the changes that it's the cultural changes, the climate, in India it's so warm and in Canada it's so cold. There is only, I mean, the place where I live, there is only 4 months of summer, and most of the, year it's snowing. So will you be able to cope through the climate changes and then the cultural changes and the new way of life? So I think he was trying to assess that, on top of what is the, your academic capability. But your resume basically speaks a lot on your academic capability. And when you talk to the person, they can see, what is the, actual things that, I guess, I don't know what I should say, that that a person will be able to handle all this pressure. So it does happen. People get the PhD or graduate school there, and then they cannot cope up with all the changes, and they leave in the first semester or like second semester. That does happen, right? So, and they don't want someone going through that process. So
Yeah, becomes a cultural shock. Yeah.
yeah. So in my case, that's what I talked to him, and then after he left, basically he said, if I'm willing to pursue a degree at McMaster, then just submit the application, and then from there, that's how I end up going to Canada. And for language like TOEFL, they say it's mandatory. I think it's important at some area, but for me, having studied all our education in English medium, that was, they had a waiver program that, I have done all my education in English medium, and I can comprehend and I can talk and I can write in English. So they didn't really need the TOEFL exam. So they gave the waiver for that. And GRE, I didn't write GRE, so there are universities that accept GRE and that also don't accept GRE. The trend will be in future. Right now, you might still need GRE, but in future, GRE might be, it might be gone from the system, most likely. Maybe 5 years or 10 years from now. They have this issue that, by focusing on the candidates who has GRE, they are losing the pool of people who are actually interested to to pursue for higher education or for study. But the fact that GRE needs time and effort just to write the exam. Some people who are from the backward classes, they cannot afford GRE, so it becomes a problem, at the end, that, they are not having equal pool of people that they actually want to have in the system. So already, like, I think University of California, they have, when I saw last in the news, was they are dropping the GRE for a few years and see whether they can, get still, the students who are, who are interested and, still good in their aptitude. So that is something, they will probably come up with exam of their own, only for their university, but not to include in the general GRE group. So, and I mean, for now, you might still need GRE. So, those are there. So in my case, I didn't write GRE either. So, yeah, I guess I talk to people a lot. And
I think it's fine, ma'am. I mean, it was a lot of practical knowledge, and I
yeah,
hope it gives our viewers a sense of a bit an idea of rational thinking in their future. I guess everyone learned a lot from this. I mean, ma'am, your journey speaks a lot. So as we come to an end, so on the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we, the Girl Up Manipur, a subgroup of the Girl Up, founded by the UN Foundations, aim to empower and encourage women and bring gender equality in the society. And we would like to ask you to join us in changing this narrative. So, everyone, thank you for joining us in celebrating women and girls who are leading innovation and call for action to remove all barriers that hold them back. Thank you, ma'am. I hope we didn't cause you any inconvenience. Thank you, ma'am. And
thank you, thank you,
thank you, ma'am.
thank you,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
viewers, for listening.
Yes, ma'am.